So as promised, we are going to talk about self-exploration in this video, and learning to know ourselves better helps us be able to express that in appropriate ways, right? So learning to be assertive requires us to manage our emotions, and increasing awareness of your communication style and how that all plays in is really important here. So I always say our reality is made up of thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. And often we will see those things as intertwined. But if we look a little bit closer at it, we can see that we can influence each of those little facets of our experience in some ways. Now, I always say emotions are our God-given guidance system. We really can't change that. They are very instinctual, and emotions happen to us, and we don't really have an opportunity to filter that before we feel the feeling. If someone pulls out in front of me in traffic when I'm driving, I'm going to have a feeling about that. It's probably going to be fear or anger for sure. But my thoughts are going to do a lot to either increase or decrease that feeling. So for example, I might think, wow, they must be really distracted. I hope they're okay. I'm going to have empathy for them, and my feelings of upset are probably going to subside a little bit. If I think to myself, what an irresponsible jerk, he's going to kill someone, then my upset feelings are going to escalate. I'm going to be fueling those things. So I can control my thoughts to some extent, and I might have some reactive thoughts, but I can catch myself much easier in the thought process than in the feeling process. And then I can induce myself to think in a different way. But based on these feelings and these thoughts, I'm going to have some behavior. So if the driver pulls out in front of me, I think they're a jerk, and I chase him down and flip him off, I've just acted on my thoughts and feelings. I can be upset and choose not to have the behavior of chasing the driver down. I am 100% responsible for my behavior, much more so than the thought and the feeling arena. So, bottom line is our communication style is a behavior. The things that we do to communicate are behaviors. So we're responsible to manage those in the best possible way. And to do that, we have to interrupt our feelings and our thoughts of upset. That, again, change begins with awareness. So that's where we have to start. You start to tease out the thoughts, the feelings, and the behaviors, and then you can choose the most effective behaviors. Not necessarily the most effective behaviors, but the behaviors that are going to get you to the result that you want. So if we want to have a more secure, connected relationship, there are certain behaviors that are going to bring us closer to that. And there's other behaviors that are going to take us further away. So let's identify what those are and take responsibility for including those behaviors in our communication patterns. So self-management is a course unto itself. There is a lot of information in that. Maybe I'll make a course on that next. Who knows? Now, hopefully you have seen kind of what your primary communication style is based on what we've already talked about. If you haven't, then you probably need to take some time to explore a little bit more based on what you have learned. So I'm going to include some questions that might help you. And by all means, you could ask those people close to you for feedback, people that you trust, that you know has your best interest in mind. Okay, so I have some questions for you, and there's a worksheet that goes along with this. It'll be attached somehow to this lesson. I'm not sure what format this course is going to be in yet, but it'll be somewhere where you can find it with this lesson. But the questions are designed to help you dig into this, and this isn't supposed to be comfortable. It's supposed to be a little bit uncomfortable, and it's supposed to make you really dig around in there and think about what is going on underneath in the thought, feeling, and the behavior area. So the first question is, when was the last time where I behaved passively? I went along to get along. I did something I really didn't want to do because somebody else preferred it. I didn't offer my thoughts about a topic when I might have. When was the last time that you did that? So when you were in that situation, what were your thoughts when you chose to be passive? Did you think that it wasn't worth it, that it was going to be an argument, that it was no big deal? What kind of things were you thinking when you chose to be passive? And then dig a little bit deeper in that. and think about what were your feelings when you chose to be passive. As I'm sitting here and thinking of a time when I was passive, my feelings, I might have been a little bit angry about it actually, and I didn't express that. And I don't think that I really handled it in a passive aggressive way, but I did feel a little bit angry and resentful about it. So what were your feelings when you chose to be passive? You could have just felt sad. You could have felt lonely. What were your behaviors when you chose to be passive? And those behaviors are probably going to be based a lot on what your thoughts and your feelings were. So if you thought that nobody cared what you thought, then you probably felt a little bit sad, a little bit lonely, a little bit rejected. And maybe your behaviors reflected that. So maybe you isolated yourself and went and locked yourself in your room. Or maybe you went and cried. What was your behavior when you chose to be passive, when you had that situation where you behaved passively? So then you're going to dig down into what are you really afraid of? And most of the time that fear circles somewhere around a breach in the relationship. So in thinking of the situation that I had in mind, it was not my partner, but it was a different family member. And when the situation happened, I felt like it really wasn't worth it to speak up and say my mind, that it wasn't going to help anyway. And my feelings around that were a little bit of anger, a little bit of resentment. And my behavior was that I went ahead and took care of whatever it was, the situation that had come up. But what I was really afraid of was breaching that connection with that family member. And when I thought about it in my head, I said, it's really not worth breaching the relationship about. This is not somebody that I'm in close relationship with. If it was my partner, I might need to, because those resentments build up, right? But the fear usually lies around breach of relationship, breach of connection. So the next question focuses on when was the last time where I behaved passive aggressively, where I went along to get along, but I wanted revenge and I found a way to get out of doing what I didn't want to do. Maybe I blamed getting lost or stuck in traffic or losing something for not completing something that I committed to. Maybe I made a big joke about something. Maybe I made fun of my partner for when they didn't approve of my efforts. So this one is probably a little bit harder because, as I said before, passive aggressiveness is usually pretty well defended. We usually justify it quite a bit. So it's hard sometimes to tell where we've been passive aggressive. But if you were able to identify a situation where you were passive aggressive, by the way, if you feel like you're not passive aggressive, you might want to ask your partner because sometimes they see it when you don't actually see it. So if you do see it, what were your thoughts when you chose to be passive aggressive? Your thoughts could have been one way in the beginning, like at first you might have thought, well, I'll just go along with this, but later on, then you felt angry. So they could be one way in the beginning and then change later. And then what were you feeling when you chose to be passive aggressive? Your feelings also could have been one way in the beginning and then changed later. And then what were your behaviors when you chose to be passive aggressive? Again, behaviors might have been one way in the beginning, like you might have been all cooperative in the beginning, but then later on when you got kind of feeling annoyed, you started causing some friction and dragging your feet about the project or whatever. And the same question applies. What was it you were really afraid of? Why do you feel that you lapsed into that kind of communication style? So then the next set of questions is, what was the last situation where I behaved aggressively? Where I kind of bullied somebody to get my way. Maybe I yelled at my partner to get them to back down, or I got angry when they opposed my views or opinions. It happens to all of us. Remember, this aggression, anger, is a response to being scared or hurt. So we will behave aggressively when it feels like the safe option, right? What were your thoughts when you chose to be aggressive? What were you thinking? And then what were your feelings? Again, underneath that is some fear or some hurt. What were your feelings that were going on when you chose to be aggressive? And then what were your behaviors when you chose to be aggressive? That could be nonverbal behaviors as well as other physical behaviors. Could be either one of those, right? And again, same question to dig into. What was it that you were really afraid of? So in my experience, one or two of those may be easy for you to fill out. The one that's the hardest might be the one that you're the most defensive about, and you should explore whether that's true for you or not. I really, really trust that inner knowing that we all have, and it takes a lot of courage to look closer. So good on you. So have you found some area you'd like to work on? Do you think that you need to move more towards the assertive middle ground in any area of your life? We're going to explore a bit more in the next video and help you to see where maybe you've already mastered this. So I'll talk to you then.